Continuing from where we left off in the previous video, the sexual revolution truly erupted when significant numbers of young women started embracing a new utopian ideal. This seismic shift appears to have been most prominent on university campuses throughout the 1960s. The advent of the birth control pill provided women with an unprecedented level of control over their reproductive health, leading to a radical change in attitudes towards sexuality. Women were no longer confined to the traditional roles and expectations of society. Instead, they began to explore their sexual freedom, pursuing relationships on their own terms. This shift was not without its challenges. Men, caught in the wave of change, often found themselves perplexed. Columnist Paul Craig Roberts, reflecting on this era, recalls how even the most progressive of men struggled to adapt to the new sexual landscape. This sudden change in sexual behavior, although perplexing to many, was justified by arguments that challenged the traditional sexual double standards. Diving deeper into the arguments presented, the women claimed that traditional morality imposed an unfair double standard. This double standard, as it was argued, painted women who sought sexual freedom as sluts, while men engaging in the same behavior were hailed as studs. It was a dichotomy that seemed to reward men for the same act women were condemned for. This accusation of a double standard wasn't without its valid points. It was true that men who sought sex outside of marriage often insisted on their brides being virgins. The term fallen woman was commonplace, yet there was no equivalent term for men. This was seen as further evidence of the double standard. However, there was a counter-argument. Rather than embracing promiscuity, women could have chosen to set a good example by practicing monogamy, regardless of men's actions. They could have shown that dignity and self-respect didn't need to be sacrificed for the sake of equality. But let's set that aside for a moment and further explore this concept of the double standard. The premise of the double standard, while persuasive, is a distortion of an important truth. Let's dive into this. Society, in its wisdom, has never encouraged men to seek casual sex with multiple women. The reasoning behind this is simple and stark. The consequences are both obvious and inevitable. Abandoned women, fatherless children, these are the real, tangible outcomes of such behavior. It's important to remember that promiscuous men have traditionally been viewed in a negative light. They've been tagged with labels such as libertine or rake, terms that certainly don't evoke admiration or respect. These labels are steeped in a sense of dissoluteness, danger, and dishonor. So when it comes to the traditional rule of sexual conduct, it's not a case of do as I say, not as I do. The expectation has always been clear: chastity outside of marriage and faithfulness within. This applies to both sexes, not favoring one over the other. It's clear then that the traditional rule of sexual conduct has been chastity outside of marriage and faithfulness within, for both sexes. As we've seen, the sexual revolution and the arguments that propelled it have complex roots. We've traced the onset of this cultural shift, starting with the utopian ideals of the 1960s. We've also dissected the double standard argument, a rallying cry for many during this period. Finally, we've debunked this double standard, highlighting the societal implications of such a shift. We'll delve deeper into this riveting topic in our next video. In the meantime, we invite you to share your thoughts on this discussion. Do you think the sexual revolution had more positive or negative impacts on society?